improved me a lot. In general, it, it has been difficult for Syrians in Turkey. It's so difficult for them because there are laws, but laws are not applied to protect refugees, to protect Syrians, the brothers in religion with the Turkish, as they say. But to this day, they are still displacing people to Syria.
Hello, my name is Stanley Heller. Welcome to the Struggle Video News. In a staggering event, 500,000 Palestinians in Gaza returned to the north. This is what awaited them in Beit Lahia. In Vietnam, the U.S. killed 3 million, but Hanoi was left standing, as was the city of Saigon. In Gaza, no city was left undestroyed. Yet Netanyahu's war was a failure in the terms he himself set. He said the Israeli military would win freedom for the hostages. He said that Hamas and the military resistance would be utterly crushed. He said the Philadelphia corridor on the border with Egypt would remain in Israeli hands, as would the Netzarim corridor dividing North Gaza from the south. The so-called religious Zionists wanted even more: the clearing out of the Palestinians and the settlement of Gaza by Israeli Jews. None of that happened. Down to its basics, the ceasefire agreement is a gradual withdrawal of Israeli troops and an exchange of captives. Two things were revealed. Netanyahu's vaunted billion-dollar system of high-tech and military failed on October 7th, 2023, and an actual genocide did not force a Palestinian surrender. This should harm Israel's security brand. One of the people freed in the captives swap was Zakaria Zubeidi. I first heard his name in the film Arna's Children. He is shown as one of the children in a theater that Arna Mer Khamis created. He later took part in the Second Intifada as a fighter. He was leader of the Al-Aqsa Martyrs Brigade, and later was a founder of the Freedom Theater in Jenin. He was arrested by Israel in 2019, took part in a prison break, and was re-arrested. He received a hero's welcome upon his release in the West Bank.
أنا اسمي سيف الدين درويش، عمري 14 سنة. يعني وضع سجن أوفر للأشبال متدمر. الأكل وجبتين في اليوم، يجيبوا عقلة الصبح لكل غرفة 4 ربطات خبز، بيجيبوا علب شمينة صغار جدا، يعني أصغر نوع. بدك تظلك تستنى من الساعة 10 الصبح للساعة 6 المغرب تجيبوا لك الوجبة الثانية. الوجبة الثانية بيبقى موجود فيها بندورة. طبعا البندورة يعني بتجيبوا حبتين للغرفة، يعني بدك تقعد تخشم كل واحد من الثاني، يعني انت تخشم خشمة بعدها تعطيها للثاني. في غرف كانوا يجيبوا حبتين بندورة، حبتين خيار 3 حبات 4 حبات ل 12 واحد طبعا. الرز ما كانوش يجيبوه ابدا، كانوا يجيبونا كانت ني يعني مش مستوي. الشرب سحب الكناني في الشرب، يعني اذا بدك تشرب من حنفية الحمام، ويعني فيش حدا بيحب انه يشرب منها.
One of the people not released was Dr. Hussam Abu Sufiya, director of the Kamal Adwan Hospital. This is a protest in London on January 5th. Back to Gaza. In a thread on Twitter, a young man talked about finding intact books. That reminded us of posts by poet Mossab Abu Taha about the Edward Said Library, which he supervised. He wondered if these children survived. This is what happened to the library.
سلام، أنا اليوم في اليوم الثاني في شمال غزة في بيت لاهيا، مكتبة أدوارد سعيد. أدوارد سعيد لصاحبها الأستاذ صديقي وعزيزي مصعب أبو توفيق. طبعا مصعب ربنا يعوضه بعوض خير، كل الكتب اتدمرت، كل الكتاب انحرقت، البيت كله واقع، بس إن شاء الله أنت حتكمل وإحنا حنكمل معك وحندعمك. وهي كتبك Arab Literary Awards. ربنا يعوضك عوض خير.
Trump has issued a decree to all the resident aliens who joined in the pro-jihadist protests. We put you on notice. Come 2025, we will fine you. We will deport you. Trump wrote in a fact sheet to the executive order, I will also quickly cancel the student visas of all Hamas sympathizers on college campuses, which have been infested with radicalism like never before. Actually, the pro-jihadist protesters were in reality anti-genocide protesters, or pro-Palestinian, as noted by Reuters. Trump's order pretends to be protecting U.S. Jews, even though many Jews took part in the anti-genocide protests. And note that word sympathizers. Even freedom of opinion must be trampled upon. We regret not noting last week that January 29th was 1 year after the murder of Hind Rafab and her 4 cousins and the 2 ambulance workers sent to rescue them. There's a great piece by Prem Tucker on Zeddio about his efforts to hold the Biden administration to task about this, asking at press conference after press conference about what the Israeli investigation had uncovered about this, and not getting any answer. Hind Rafab presenting. And there's a Hind Rafab Foundation on Twitter. We noticed it's attempting to bring to justice war criminal Israeli soldiers who go on vacation in foreign countries. Following up on Musk and his salute. On Twitter, he said he was merely moving his hand from his heart to the crowd. It was, of course, an obvious lie. And then this innocent man went on to promote the furthest far-right party in Germany. The Jewish establishment, shamefully, was mostly silent about what Musk did with his hand gesture. The reason, pretty obviously, was Netanyahu's instant defense of Musk. Take Deborah Lipstadt. She served as Biden administration's special envoy combating global anti-Semitism. She downplayed the incident, saying essentially there were bigger fish to fry. And, according to the Jewish Telegraph Agency reporter, agreed with the ADL that Musk was merely making an awkward gesture. A New York Jewish newspaper issued a condemnation. But it wasn't a condemnation of Musk. It's a condemnation of AOC for being one of the few members of Congress to criticize Musk and the ADL. In Berlin, Germany, an activist group with the interesting name Led by Donkeys used a projector to put this display on a Tesla building. On Blue Sky, the account is ledbydonkeys.org. In the USA, a Milwaukee weather reporter on her private Instagram page denounced Musk's salute. She was then fired by CBS 58. There's a petition in her defense that led to creation of a billboard sponsored by the Minocqua Beer Super PAC. It's facing the building of CBS 58. It's the first public anti-Musk action in the USA. If the last line of the billboard seems familiar. It's a quote from Timothy Snyder, the Yale professor who wrote On Tyranny. There's a good article in The Nation by Dave Zirin about the firing of the weather reporter. You can see a link to it and a link to the petition signed already by 40,000 people in the Anti-Fascist Archive of Promoting Enduring Peace. Now to the second part of my interview with Syrian activist Nooraddeen Mokhiber. He was an exile from Assad, Syria. You recall at the end of the first half of our talk, he was mentioning what it was like to leave his city of Mo'adamiyah for the north.
I said goodbye to my father, who passed away like 30 years ago when I was a kid. I said goodbye to my mother, my brothers and sister. Um, I shed tears a lot. I couldn't stop crying for all the trip from Mo'adamiyah to northern Syria. I couldn't just remember the days I spent in Mo'adamiyah my whole life before that, and think of every single detail of memory. It was like, as I said, taking a flower out of earth.
So your members of your family did remain behind, your mother and other siblings?
Yeah, I was like two brothers with their families, my mother and my sister. Yeah, they stayed at home.
And are they still there?
They're still there. They suffered a lot after we were displaced because as I continued my activity against the regime, my peaceful activity in journalism or human rights or any single news I used to publish regarding the situation in my city, they were harassed by the regime. They sent many patrols to my house to frighten my family to force me to stop saying anything about the regime or what's happening in my city. So they suffered a lot because of me, but because of the regime.
So you were in Idlib, up the north, what is it, the north
Yeah.
west, and but you didn't stay there that long. What was it like living in Idlib?
The minute we arrived in Idlib, it was like a new place. Imagine living in a house for 4 years or 5 6 years, and then seeing the whole liberated areas. The prices were low, the environment somehow clear and nice, the people welcoming, and it was like going from prison. And we were in a prison. So we were happy the first few days, but after that we faced the situation. We faced the true life. You can say the true life. You have to find a job there. You have to do anything to help the family first and to stay at the same line of the revolution. You cannot stop being an activist, and you have to find a work to help the family. So it was difficult after that. I stayed for like 2 months only. I was indirectly threatened by HTS itself at the time not to communicate with English or talking to foreign media. Indirectly, they sent me a message by a friend, and I remember I had an interview with the BBC radio, and after a couple hours, just a couple of hours, a car bomb exploded near me and my wife at the entrance of the house we were living in Idlib city. So after that, I decided to leave Idlib to Turkey.
Yeah. So you went first to Turkey, is that right?
Yeah, I went to Turkey to Gaziantep.
Say that city again.
Gaziantep city.
See, could you get work there? What was it like for refugees in Turkey?
It was good for me having relations with people working on the Syrian cause. I made it to find a job with the Syrian Network for Human Rights after I arrived 2 3 months, which helped me first, but improved me a lot. In general, it, it has been difficult for Syrians in Turkey. It's so difficult for them because there are laws, but laws are not applied to protect refugees, to protect Syrians, the brothers in religion with the Turkish, as they say. But to this day, they are still displacing people to Syria. My friend told me a couple of days ago that he saw buses in a square in Istanbul carrying Syrians to be displaced to Syria to this day. So I have a bad impression about Turkey. Unfortunately, now maybe politically and other aspects, they are helping the new Syrian administration, maybe. But for me, I remember the first week I arrived in Turkey, I was with my wife and a friend with his wife at a park in the city. A group of Turkish people, young Turkish people, attacked us, saying Syrians go to Syria. This was the first week I arrived in Turkey.
Wow.
Not to mention many times being stopped by Turkish checkpoints in the city. Yeah, it was difficult, so difficult.
So then, when did you leave Turkey?
Um, when I saw that there is no luck for me in Turkey, it wasn't a kind of place to build a life in Turkey. I applied to the French embassy in Turkey and got the visa in November 2021 when I arrived here.
So you've been in France in the east there since 2021. So what are feelings for Syrians in France or in eastern France where you've been?
For now, you mean at the time?
What are the feelings from the French towards Syrians? Excuse me.
Um, it's totally different from Turkey. Of course, the French people are welcoming. The majority, I'm not sure, but the majority or the people I knew or faced, or for example, in official administration buildings, the employees, all welcoming, all good, and I haven't experienced any bad any bad thing about that.
Even with the rise of Le Pen and the extreme right, that hasn't been a problem.
Yeah, I haven't experienced anything. Maybe it's maybe I'm saying because the region I'm living in, there is no majority for the far right or so. I'm not sure, but we heard some incidents in other parts of France. But for me personally, nothing happened.
Do you plan to go back to Syria? Are you thinking about that? What is your situation?
Yes, of course. Yes, of course. As I said, the day I left Mardami, the first place, that I will be back, even if it's after 1,000 years. But now it's a bit difficult because the law prevents me from returning or communicating with the Syrian authorities or anything like that, the refugee law here. So we're hearing news that the government would allow Syrians with residencies to go to visit their families, to visit their cities and return, which is a good step if it happens because, for example, the kids are at school now. There are some commitments here. You can't just pack up bags and leave. We're not living in northern Syria anymore to just get in the car and return.
Yeah, sure. Yeah. So, final question. Do you think Syria is on track now to win the freedoms that people suffered so much for 10 years ago?
I would say definitely. As I started by saying that the the main problem and the main cancer for not only Syrians but the whole world is now over, which is the Assad regime, the Iranian militias, and the Russians. Those are like the enemies of humanity, not just Syrians, you know. So as they are now not on the scene, yes, but there are still some steps to gain for the revolution. From my point of view, is not over yet. The revolution's demands were specific. We want dignity, we want freedom, we want accountability, we want democracy. So when the all steps are achieved, yes, we say we have our freedom back. But for now, as for example, as I say, there will be no one to be detained anymore. There will be no one to be tortured anymore. There will be no one to be killed anymore. Yeah, this is a huge step to stop the killings, to stop the detention centers, the slaughterhouses, in other words. Yes, it's a huge step, and we're looking forward. For me, I see the good things coming to Syrians. We have worries, of course, about the management, the current management. Of course, we have worries, but as I said, and I repeat, the main cancer is now getting rid of. So it's the future is promising. I wish.
Finally, here's a picture of a billboard that Connecticut activists hope to put over a major highway. For more information, contact us at mail@thestruggle.org. That's our program for today. See you next week at this time. I'm Stanley Heller for the Struggle Video News.